What's going on, guys? So I have made a lot of content on other platforms such as TikTok, and I have a lot of people that come in and they ask why I'm doing what I'm doing with the AM radio, or why should I get a license. So I made this video just in case those people make their way over here to YouTube, or if YouTube decides to promote this video to people who haven't or are not subscribed to my channel. So we're going to talk about why you should get a amateur radio license. And I'm not here to sell it to you, and we'll get more into that in just a moment. But there's a lot of misconceptions and even more debate, especially over my TikTok, um, on the licensing. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of things. Real quick, if you guys have not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button below. If you haven't liked it, please give me a thumbs up. I tend to think that people who get their amateur or ham radio license are usually divided into several categories, and there may be more than I'm listing here. But either you're a tinker, a maker, or a hacker. You're a hobbyist. You just like getting into things. You like learning new things and really getting your hands dirty with it. You're a prepper, so you're preparing for when things hit the fan, right? Have to keep it PG here on YouTube. Or you like the idea of communication that doesn't rely on a traditional backbone that you can do on your own from operator to operator. You may want to learn a new skill for a job that you do. You may just want the social connection, and ham radio might be one of the only ways you can do that. Or you would just like to provide some community service. Whether it be, those are mostly the motivators that I feel like a lot of people get pushed into once they get in the amateur radio. Now, once they get in there, obviously, they're going to learn about so many more things that they may go do whatever, you know. But I think these categories, this list is the main beef and potatoes of why people usually search and find videos like this right here. So let's talk about tinkers, makers, and hackers. So amateur radio is evolving, and we have a influx of people who are tinkerers and makers, right? Now we have all these low-cost micro computers and so many new programmers that are coming in, and they want to use RF to be able to make devices talk to each other or just experiment it on with their own. And they need that amateur radio license in order to use those frequencies to experiment with. So that might be your entry into the hobby. And that's awesome, because once you do that, you'll see that there's so much more to it than that. But if that's what you want to stick with, that's fine. But getting your amateur radio license is obviously going to let you do that legally, and it's going to let you show off your projects and make YouTube videos about them and all that without people telling you in the comments that what you're doing is illegal, right? Now, some people are just hobbyists. Some people, they like to use their hands to work on things, whether it be woodworking, electronics, radio, whatever it be. There are people out there that get into so many different hobbies, and they're doing so much, and it's just they learn new skills, they keep their minds busy, they get better with their hands, and they just all around become more rounded individuals and have more knowledge about what goes around. They have more knowledge about what goes on in the world around them, right? If you're a hobbyist, that's fine. And amateur radio is probably one of the best hobbies you can get into, because no matter how far you deep, it just keeps on going. You know, there's so many different specialities. Is that a word? I don't know. There's so many different specific niches that you can get into with amateur radio, and they just keep on going from there. So it just never stops. If you want to specialize in digital modes, if you want to specialize in, you know, whatever it be, or method of communication, you can do that. Another thing I see is people want to be able to communicate in case the communication grid goes down. And this is for your preppers. The preppers can be a touchy subject, because all over the internet I see a lot of preppers buy the Baofeng radios, which is fine. But the idea is they buy the Baofeng radios and they don't actually want to get the amateur radio license to use them. And to me, it's kind of like a train as you fight scenario. If you're buying, you know, cheap radios in hopes that you're going to use them to communicate, and you never use them because you can't legally do so, and you never learn to use them properly, well, that's amateur hour, really. You're just setting yourself up for failure. And I'm just being straightforward here. If you want to buy these radios and actually use them in the event of a disaster, you have to be able to practice with them. And amateur radios provided a really nice way for everyone to get together and practice for emergency communications, which is the perfect thing for you to do. You can buy the radios and you can stash them and you can put the cool cases on them and paint them camouflage and the cool antennas, and you might be able to talk to your buddies with them, but when stuff hits the fan, you're really not going to be able to use it to its full extent unless you've done a lot of studying on your own. And still then it's going to take practice after the fact because you haven't been able to legally practice beforehand. So go ahead, just get the test. If you're serious about prepping, and you actually want to be prepared if something happens and not just kind of showy flashy on Instagram, get the license. It's not that difficult, and it's going to help you tenfold in the long run if things do shit. If it's going to help you tenfold in the long run if things do hit the fan. It's going to help you learn how to program the radios. It's going to help you understand what frequencies to use and when. It's going to help you understand how to troubleshoot something if something's not working. And those are things that you're just not going to get unless you practice with them, right? And you're not going to actually practice with them unless you have an amateur radio license. Hopefully. And I don't mean just keying up and talking to your buddy that's half a mile down the road that's on the same frequency to make sure they work. That's not practicing, right? You might as well just get a walkie-talkie and hope that works for you. Now, another reason you may want to get into amateur radio is to learn and expand your skills for jobs. And this is one of the big reasons I got into. So the reason I got into amateur radio is because I worked on a lot of radios with the military, and it was mainly HF radios or VHF radios. And other than what I did with the military and what they taught me, which, to be honest with you, they don't teach you very much with radios. It's kind of way back in the old days, right? I learned most of what I know about radio communication through amateur radio. And it has allowed me to take the skills that I've learned in amateur radio about all the different intricate details of HF, operating frequencies on different times of day, different ways the ionosphere works with different sun cycles, and all this other fun stuff that I'm never taught in the military, but here I've learned it on my own, and I can carry those skills over to that field. So if you just want to broaden your skill set and you want to learn more about electronics, you want to learn more about how radios work and kind of perfect that for whatever job or maybe just a personnel skill that you want to have, amateur radio is the best and almost the only way to do that on your own. You take the test, you get your license, you buy a radio, and from there on you have a whole community around you, whether it be local clubs or the internet that you can go to help you diagnose and troubleshoot issues and dig up more information to make your equipment work better. And it's all up to you to kind of learn on at your own pace and do your own thing, which provides a really nice way to learn, right? So if you just want to learn about communication, RF engineering, any of that, amateur radio is definitely the way to go. Now, another thing that's on my list is community service. And the reason community service is last on my list is because I don't think it's the forefront of why people mainly get into the hobby. Now, I could be way wrong here, right? So if I am, make sure to let me know down in the comments. But I believe I believe community service comes after the fact. I believe when people, this is my opinion, when people think about ham radio, they're not, or when they think about community service, they're like, I want to do something for my community. Maybe I should do ham radio. There may be some individuals like that out there, but I think more so people learn about the hobby, they learn about amateur radio, and then they see the ways it can help the community and what they can do for the community with it, and then that's the route they go. So, and there's a lot of different ways that you can help your community with amateur radio. And one of the big things that you see in the news, obviously, is disaster relief. So if wildfires break out or major natural phenomena that destroy cell towers or communication grids, Well, amateur radios are what people look to make sure that communication messages still go back and forth in and out of that, because there's no other way to do it besides RF or radio, right? So amateur radios, a lot of them stand by and they practice either weekly or monthly or daily for emergency events with each other in a community to make sure that they are prepared to step in and help whenever the time comes. And it goes beyond disaster preparedness too. There's races that require amateur radio operators to come help. A lot of marathons and cross country stuff use amateur radios to step in and kind of help relay messages. And there's just a lot of different ways that you can dig into your community with amateur radio and you can help out. So if that's one of the reasons that you're here, that's great too, because there's a lot of different things you can pop into and help with in your community. So another big reason you might want to get into amateur radio is you like the idea of a communication channel without a major internet backbone. So we live in a world today where we rely on cell towers, satellites, underground ocean transmission lines, whatever it be. We rely on everybody else and a very intricate system to be able to communicate from one place to another. And there's a lot of times when we do not have access to that channel. You may be in remote locations or somewhere where internet or communication standards that we have in most places is not available. Or you just like the idea of not relying on it. Well, through amateur radio, mainly HF radio or high frequency radio, we have the ability to communicate quite literally around the world without the need of internet or satellite to support us. And this is one of the most fascinating parts of the hobby for me, because I just think it's so interesting that you can spend several $100s and have the equipment to communicate all the way to the other side of the earth without the need of internet. So that sums up the big reasons why I think most people think or want to get into amateur radio. And I hope I've cleared that up for a lot of people, especially if you hear from other platforms, or if this video makes it to you and you're not a licensed amateur that has already subscribed to my YouTube. Think about getting your license. It's not that difficult, and there are so many different ways you can go once you do get it. So many things you can get into, so many things that you can learn, and there's so much more preparedness that you can have for either natural disasters or whatever it be. If you're a tinkerer like me, then there's all types of things you can tinker with. So think about getting your license, and if you guys need help or if you have any questions, I'll be replying to most comments as I can get down to them down below. So do let me know what you think in the comment section. Please make sure you like the video, and please make sure you subscribe. I appreciate it, and 73 to you.